Hello and welcome to another Sorcerous game development log. Today I wanted to talk about art. I am a visual thinker, and you'll notice that in my videos where I like to have an accompanying picture, an image, something as a representation of what I'm thinking of. And one of the things I really enjoy about being able to make a video game is the fact that I get to really have all of the visuals and craft what I picture this world as being. You know, from the big details all the way down to the little stuff. This is one of the first major areas, Whitewood Forest. This area is kind of inspired by a number of different real-world locations. One of the biggest is this one forest in Romania. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Yeah, it escapes me at the moment, but Spooky Romanian Forest. Now, certain specific locations, like the abandoned house here, are really more emblematic of a lot of just spooky spots that are kind of out there. These abandoned ruins, which have been kind of overtaken by, you know, the forest and the wood and all those things. Meridius, as a world, is a very... It's sort of a somber place in a lot of ways. It's not completely bleak, like, say, the world of Dark Souls, you know, Dran Lake, and I want to say Londor, you know, whatever Gwyn's kingdom was called. It's not that bad. It's not like Fallout bad. This is a fully functioning world, society, everything is more or less a nice place, but it's the history of the world that you get to explore that you kind of get the sense of just what the place is like and the tragedies and the struggles that have happened here. Here's some signs. I had fun writing these. Watch out for goblins, because they'll be watching out for you. Beyond this point, the kingdom of man ends, and the kingdom of nature begins. Anyway, you can read those for yourself sometime. This is the Moon Bog. The name comes from an H.P. Lovecraft story, and it's about this sort of bog with these ruins in it, and I like bogs, I like ruins. You know, good stuff. Here we are up into the peat bog. Ignore the red box. The red box means nothing. Really interesting phenomenon is in a lot of those northern countries where you have peat farmers, who are guys who just dig up peat. Every once in a while you'll find mummies among the peat, and these are people who, for one reason or another, have been buried in these bogs, and they get mummified, and it's very cool and interesting. Oh, another thing, runestones. those are kind of scattered around in this area, and you can read them and find out about the lore. So that is a little taste of Whitewood Forest. Here we have another very important location. This is the Catacombs, obviously based on the very famous Paris Catacombs. There is lots to explore and discover as you kind of walk around here. There are quite a few ossuaries like this. Kind of gated off areas with items that will be worth your time to kind of try and find and collect. The city where the game is set, Letha, has a very long history. It's a couple thousand years old, and it's built on this kind of honeycomb of natural caves and tunnels and just this expansive labyrinthine network. And the characters will explore a small portion of that throughout the course of the game. And I have so many ideas for it, and I was only able to work in a fairly small percentage. But I'm happy with what I got on screen and in the game for you to explore. You may have noticed that when I went from this scene, from the last scene to this scene, the screen got darker. I'm working on controlling the light levels because out of combat skills mattered to me, and an ability to create light is one of the skills that you're going to need. So yeah, it's dark in here too. Certain areas get dark. Now I will fix all that by the time the game comes out. Everything will all be dark and appropriately obscured from your vision. I'm still playing with the light level, seeing where I need to put it. And there are all kinds of things for you to look around at and fool with. So that's the actual in-game art assets I get with the RPG Maker software, but I also have gone to the trouble of getting kind of outside help. So let's start off with, first off, you get to see my lovely art for things like NPCs and enemies. I do a beforehand sketch. Here are some of them. I think I'm a little bit better than I was when I was posting regularly-ish on DeviantArt. I'm not Picasso here, partly because I'm not drawing cubes and everything's not blue, but you get what I mean. I really like this one pose. I think you can see, you get a good view of the character. But anyway, I will, at some point, when I need to get that done, hand that off to an actual, talented artist. And we get back things that look more like this. This is from the artist BunnyNuggetz. You can find her on Tumblr and I think DeviantArt. I'll have links down in the video description. I thought a lot about costume design and how people look in the world of Meridius, and it's a little bit hard to nail down the time frame. There's not an exact time when this takes place that's analogous to the real world. I think that the kind of strongest visual influence is probably diesel punk, which puts it in kind of the pulpy Hellboy ish sort of time frame where everything's kind of got that fantasy World War II look. But obviously, as you can see with Holly here, there are a lot of much more modern elements which come more from like the 90s and the 2000s. And I've kind of tried to blend those together as much as I could. Like, this is one of the NPCs from Whitewood Forest. He's Inquisitor Felix. I had to make sure he got the appropriate inquisitorial hat, the official badge of office. He's kind of a more lightly armored guy, going with kind of the leather and the jacket that goes along with. It's actually like a long duster style coat, which are cool. Another thing which kind of turned out to be an important visual aspect of Sorcerous is giving clothing items a little bit more of a weathered look, like the tears and the gaps in the fabric. This is one of the professors at Hexengard, Caleb. He is a wondrous items professor. He's one of the Skritty, which are a type of Hould folk, which humanity in the world of Meridius is split into these different kindreds, or people. They're human plus something else. And he is one of the Hould folk, which are influenced by nature, and he got rats. Not the most noble animal, surely, but they're in the Chinese zodiac. They deserve to be there. This is Lord Melchior. He's one of the city's big mucky mucks. Designing armor is one of the things I like to do. And for him, this is kind of a look which is carried over to a lot of things in the world of Sorcerous. Is I blend the modern elements with the more medieval elements, where he's tactical, but he's knightly tactical. I went with the modern military style uniform, but also like the clearly fantasy inspired armor. One of the things that isn't going to come across, but I picture all of the swords in the world of Sorcerous. They've got kind of an ergonomic grip, where it's really more designed for your hand. The handles are actually triangular, so because if you make like a fist, how you would hold a sword, it doesn't make like a circle. It makes this kind of triangle, so the grips are more triangular in shape. Also, it's got the Kevlar pockets, the pouches. This is Aunt Minerva. She's Andraste's aunt, fairly important to the plot. And getting the medieval and the modern, she is the same class as Andraste, which is an arcane knight, which means she is a sword magic user. I wanted this kind of fencery look for her, and we've kind of worked in the leather and the fabric, and hopefully it all comes together well. This is one of the students at Hexengard. Her name's Minuet, by the way. Unfortunately, I was not able to do as much with her as I wanted to in terms of the plot, but she's there, and I think the outfit and the design helped me cement what I'm going for with just the look of everything. This is Regan. She's a hag, obviously. And those are some of the major NPCs. And I think I'm going to let you see the enemies as well, at least a few of them. There we go. Not spoiling anything major. I have spent a lot of time as a DM for games of Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. If you've seen my Pathfinder related channel, then you know I obviously put a lot of time and effort into doing research and knowing like how classes work, how enemies work. And I think that I enjoy games most when they're low to mid-level. That's where monsters and things don't feel cheap and ridiculous and they still pose a threat. And I have been, for Sorcerous, I put time and effort into making sure that these are sort of low-level-ish enemies that you would run into in a game of D&D or Pathfinder or a dungeon crawler RPG, but I needed to give them that threatening quality. Because the characters, if I was going to use like character levels from D&D, Andraste and the rest of the girls are only like they're level 1 to 5, really. They're not very strong at all. So they're at a level where things like this skeleton would pose a threat, and I wanted it to look very ominous and very menacing. And the artist did a really good job. She goes by Ishutani. She is on DeviantArt. Again, link down in the description. I like this decayed and warped look for a lot of skeletons. We'll get another look at that, and I'll talk about it more in just a minute. This is a goblin. Very Japanese influenced in sort of the look, because everything in the world that the characters inhabit, it's Western leaning in a lot of ways, and goblins in Sorcerous are fairies. They're fae. They are mean, nasty little fae creatures that are born from essentially the death and the decay in like the realm of autumn, where you've got just these huge like piles of leaves and the goblins will sort of emerge from them. None of this is in the game very much, but that's sort of why I went with the oranges and the browns and the sort of leafy look on his coat. The masks are something which I would have loved to expand on, because I picture each of the goblin tribes wearing different masks, and it's all, you know, very, very cool, and there are differences between them. This is a cold iron blade that obviously the goblins use to fight other fae creatures, and they sort of make them themselves out of whatever's handy. So they'll like journey into the prime material plane, into the world of Meridius. One of the things they're looking for is iron to make their weapons out of. They'll steal it. They'll rip apart like cars. Well, they don't have cars exactly, but they'll rip apart carriages, and they'll rip up rail tracks. Anything to get this resource to help them fight their enemies. And there's a lot of politics going on in the goblin tribes. I could go on for goblins forever, but I'm not going to, because we need to talk about this. This is a shadow, a greater shadow. And from time to time, you'll run into them in various places. And I wanted something which was really very dark and very ghostly and very scary to run into. When you encounter these guys, it's going to be in some fairly difficult situations. They've got some very nasty abilities. They're super, super, super awesome. Ooze. I ran into a question, like, what is an ooze? What are they? What are oozes? What do they do? And I basically kind of settled on something that felt like a one-celled organism. Oozes are clearly alive in some way. And, I wanted something very soft and jelly-like and tendrily, and something that looks like it eats by grabbing things and dissolving and absorbing them. And these will be wandering around all over the place. You can run into them. They do pretty specific damage, acid and other things, so you can be on guard for that. Rats. Fairly common enemy type, obviously. Rats. I went with the spreader of disease type look for them, and I think that really comes across nicely. They're mangy. They will get you sick. They're fast. They're kind of a different enemy type, like opposed to the ooze, which is fairly slow. You're going to really have to struggle to keep up with the rats in terms of your initiative in the order. They're not dangerous in terms of like specifically losing a fight to rats. That's not going to necessarily happen that often, although it is possible if there are enough of them. The real issue that rats are going to cause you is the fact that they can carry diseases, and they're fast. So if they get those bites off on you, well, it's a good idea to carry at least something to deal with disease. Okay, so skeletons. I enjoy designing skeletons. One of the ideas that I have, magic is a very big deal in Sorcerous, obviously, and I wanted a visual representation for what necromancy sort of does and what it can do to beings that are raised with it, and just the grotesque parody of life it creates. The skeleton was inspired by some real world conditions which can cause these very kind of tragic looking skeletal deformities. So those are some of the enemies and the visuals. It was important that the baddies, the things you're going to be fighting, have a strong visual presence, because combat is a focus of the game. It's one of the pillars that the game is built on. And I wanted to give them the visual oomph that they deserve, that'll make them fun to fight and fun to deal with. Now that I've shown you what's in the game already and what some of the artists I've had the privilege of working with have been able to add to that, I want to show you how I go about making something new. Something I'm really big on is just having stuff written on the walls. And when I need to add something or make something, I use this program here, the Tile Set Builder. It's not the most robust thing in the world, but you can do some interesting things. You can move individual art elements around. You can take stuff apart. You can put it together. I am not nearly talented enough to draw something as simple as even like a ball. I'm sorry. Or a Christmas tree bulb. Or a clock. I can't draw any of that. But I can draw lines. I can draw me some lines. So I am doing something for this room here. This is an area in the Catacombs, obviously. And I want some stuff to be on the walls in one of these cells. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a nice big can. It's actually a little too big. I like to be able to see the edges for this because I like to fill up the space. So then I'm going to get my pen, and I'm going to start by drawing some blocks. And I'm basically, I kind of got an idea of what this thing's supposed to look like. And I am drawing a line. A diagonal line. As I go about this process, whoops, just made a mistake right there. I will have to capture the image and adjust things, how it looks on the tile. and all of that to get the image how I want it to look. One of the games that I think really got me to kind of take notice of features like stuff being drawn all over the walls was the game Fear, First Encounter Assault Recon. I played that game a lot. And frankly, between you, me, and all of YouTube, I have not seen a game go from being really good to sucking as quickly as Fear. So, Fear was pretty good. I really enjoyed the sequels by a company called Timegate. That would be Fear Extraction Point and Fear the Prometheus Initiative, the Perseus Initiative, something like that. And those sequels were good. Maybe a little bit. The last one was a little bit cheesy, but it was also cool and interesting. In a lot of ways, I really enjoyed it. And then Fear 2 happened. And Monolith just embarrass themselves. That happens with them a lot. You know, they'll have a good idea, and it will have just mind-blowingly bad execution. So, Fear 2 was bad. The replica soldiers and a lot of the stuff looked really dumb. I got mad. I swore off Fear games, possibly for life. Anyway, I have an X, a big red X. Of course, it need not remain a red X because of the color shifter. Probably going to be using that in a minute. It will also not remain an X because I'm going to be closing things. So I want to close off the top. Yes. Straight line, no corrections, no nothing. I also want to close off the bottom. I messed up. It's okay. I messed up again. No. Okay. Don't worry. It's easy to fix. We'll get the eraser. Erase that. Erase that. And now we've got this kind of nifty hourglass shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to add in like some sort of magical glyph symbols in there. And hopefully this will all look really cool when it is splashed on a wall in the oubliette. And that is how I go about making new things to put in the game. Thank you very much for watching this Sorcerous vlog. Slowly but surely improving things, making things better, adding more content to the game, and very soon I plan on taking a major step that I've been excited about for a long time, adding actual voices to the game, which I think will take a lot of the storytelling, a lot of the scenes, which are very important, to the next level, and you'll really get an experience which even though we're not quite there yet, is approaching, kind of in the same ballpark as a lot of the big RPGs that I've loved. Your Fallout 3s, your KOTORs, your Mass Effects, games like those. And that's really, one day, if I had my dream and a full staff of people working for me and enough money to make Sorcerous exactly the way I want it would be a game in kind of the BioWare style. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time.